And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. Here at the Smash News Network, least busted name of news, we be covering the sun in greater detail than anybody in the world. The greatest, most detailed solar imagery you'll find anywhere is on the Smash News Network, least busted name of news. Also, the most comprehensive space weather you'll see any place is right here. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We've got some interesting prominentiary activity, some prominences happening up here around these setting regions. The most impressive sunspot of solar cycle 25 is about to set here. Likelihood of large solar flares remains very high. So although we've seen sunspots degrade here over the past 24 hours, we do have some new sunspots having risen in the east, at least 3 new sunspot groups. 2 in the south and 1 in the north. And here's your colorized magnetogram. That is yesterday plus today, October 12th. Continuing on, it looks like there's a bit of a volcanic uptick going on here as Stromboli continues to effuse lava and produce pyroclastic flows. Tremor continues at low to medium levels. Now, at Grimsvötn volcano, there's a glacial flood happening there. It's only about 20% the size of the last one. So some meltwater from that glacier subsiding from an ice sheet. It's sunk 3 meters over the past 3 days. The past few days, rather. Nishinoshima also exploding. Flight level 120 from Nishinoshima. I believe that's an uptick at Nishinoshima as well. Sakurajima flight level 040, a 4,000-foot ash plume from Sakurajima. Suwanosejima flight level 040 as well. Headed down to Central America, Fuego exploding in Guatemala. 15,000-foot ash plume from Fuego. 21,000-foot ash plume from Sangay as it explodes in Ecuador. Revenador also exploding down there. 20,000-foot ash plume above it. 22,000-foot ash plume in Peru over Sabancaya as Sabancaya explodes. And let's don't assume Nevados de Chilean's not erupting in central Chile, although we're unable to detect it, probably because of clouds. Next, looking at seismicity, and things have been calm here over the past 24 hours. Largest quake was a 5.2 north of Ascension Island. There was also a 5.2 at the Solomon Islands. Oh, I stand corrected. The largest quake was a 5.3 at Vanuatu. So not a very big quake there, but that's the biggest of the past 24. Turkey saw a 5.0. That's significant for Turkey. We're just going to let the list scroll here. If we miss anything, let us know in the comments. There was a 5.1 east of the Kuril Islands. That is south of the Kamchatka Peninsula, the highly volcanic Russian asset. Getting back to space, here's the last 24 from SDO 171 angstroms. And we're going to show you the latest updates on the status of these sunspots. 2 down here and 1 up here. Again, likelihood of large flares very high with these setting regions in the northwest. Here's a composite set of images. That's SDO 304 plus 193 angstroms. Those are the same wavelengths we started out the video with, because that's a good composite to show filaments. And there are a bunch of crown filaments right now as well, right up here. See those large prominences up there? Crown prominences. Those are typically associated with high levels of solar activity. As the North Solar Polar Coronal Hole is in its process of leaving, the radio flux has dropped down to 150 solar flux units. So for you new viewers out there, the 10.7 centimeter radial flux is a proportional number to sunspot number. As you can see here from this graph, the black line is the radial flux, the red line is the sunspot number. And let us know in the comments if you think those new sunspots will grow or shrink in the coming days. Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard forecasting some geomagnetic unrest late in the day today. I'm not sure why. There's no indication of why. There's a KP4 expected. But that's what NOAA has to say, so let's just move on here. We've seen the solar wind drop. Here's Earth's magnetohydrodynamic pressure for the past 4 hours. That's Earth's magnetic moment from space. So pretty steady there, as the solar wind has been pretty steady over the past 24 hours. We've seen a significant reduction in that. We'll get to it in a moment. First, Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Also, the last 4 hours. We show these daily because they are not viewable in archival form. So we at least show 4 hours each day on the channel. Let's get into more earthly data here with the planetary K index. We're down almost at a KP0. K0.67 is the current state of affairs. So sub KP1 there at the moment. Very low amount of geomagnetism. Next, looking at the real-time solar wind, and keep in mind this is only the Discover spacecraft at this point. You see this blue line down here? That indicates that it's only the Discover, not the ACE. Current conditions showing up here as quite slow and quite diffuse. So only 2.4 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density, and sub 400 solar wind speed, showing up around 378 kilometers per second. There are your GOES magnetometers for the past 3 days. Seeing a little divergence happening there. As the GOES 16 reading goes up, the GOES 17 reading goes down. Keep in mind, it is midnight local time for the GOES 17. Just a few minutes ago. Next, looking at the polarity of the heliospheric current sheet. There's a North Pole current sheet out there. It looks like it might have shrunk. North Pole current sheet going away. So that's an indication that those sunspots in the southern hemisphere might be about to shrink. So that's a forecast based on understanding this data. That's our top view ecliptic plane field plot, showing the polarity of the heliospheric current sheet. Maybe the sunspots in the northern hemisphere will grow, the northeast ones. We'll take a look at those a little bit later. First, our line of sight plot. And let's move to coronal holes. Let me renew that. It looks like it's a little bit lacking some frames there. There's the latest data. Keep in mind it's an hour old. We've got some North Pole oriented coronal holes there in the southern hemisphere. What happened? I think I forgot to put up the 211 angstroms. There's the SDO 211 angstroms wavelength. It's great at showing coronal holes, and those are South Pole oriented coronal holes, the well-defined ones. Down here there are some North Pole coronal holes as the solar polar field reversal process continues through cycle 25. Next we'll move to sunspots. Again, we've got should be 3 named groups. 2 down here. This one's alpha class, this one's beta class, and this one up here also alpha class. I'm suspecting this one might grow and or both of these might shrink or maybe even both in the coming days. Again, likelihood of large solar flares very high as these series of very magnetically complex sunspots set in the northwest. There's the last 24 from SDO Continuum. And we'll zoom in and show the magnetogram. Those groups mostly stable there over the past 24 hours. This one evolving a little bit. Looks like it's been shrinking. Mostly stable. And here's the magnetogram. And next we'll move to flaring, which has been fairly mild over the past 24. It hasn't produced any relativistic particles. There's the GOES proton flux. It is flatlined. Recently had a significant flare here. It was a C3.7. Peak flux was 920, right as we did show prep. 2 M-class flares in the past 24 hours, and a series of C-class flares there late in the day yesterday. Here's a good wavelength to view flares. It's 131 angstroms. We'll also show 94. Let's zoom in before we do that. Splentacular imagery there, and thanks for leaving a comment, TinMan1057. And here's the same view from 94 angstroms wavelength SDO. And we always encourage our viewers to look up. If you look up at Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania today, you might see this. The Moon and Mars up there fairly high on the ecliptic. That's the yellow line. Mars near the galactic planar line there. That's the blue line. Mercury rising ahead of the Sun. If you've got a low horizon and a clear sky, you might be able to see Mercury. And here's your solar system forecast. We've got a gibbous waning moon. And we'll advance this 1 week. Keep in mind the diagram is not to scale. And once again, would you note the fact that Jupiter still didn't kill you? Yes, Jupiter was closer than it's been during our lifetimes, which is not scary in any way. Please note, Jupiter has still not killed you. All right, let's forward this 1 week. Here's where things will be in a week. Mercury and Venus swinging around the far side of the Sun. We'll have a crescent waning moon in 1 week. Let's take a look at some coronagraphs. What is up with that? There we go. That's yesterday's 99 frames worth from George Mason University. We do have some CMEs there out of the west side of the Sun, and some out of the east. I don't believe any of those are earthly directed. They might be on the far side, actually. And here's today's imagery so far. And we do have some data from Stereo A, so let's take a look at that. If you're new to the channel, Stereo A is located here at Lagrange 5. It chases the Earth. So it is behind the Earth, orbitally speaking. It sees space weather ahead of the Earth, hence the term Stereo A for ahead. We'll also view the imagery from the SOHO-LASCO C3 here at Lagrange 1. About 1 million miles toward the Sun. So we do have some prominences here on the earthly side of the solar disk. I don't believe we have any Earth-directed CMEs at the moment. Stereo A's data is limited here, so Only showing a little bit of data here. We're about 6 hours behind on that. So let's just show some composites here. We've got some great HelioViewer movies of the Soho Lasco C3, C2, and SDO 304 angstroms. As we also show that regularly on the channel. You can see those east side CMEs happening. And here's a zoom in. There are some data gaps there, unfortunately. You can get some indication of when those CMEs happened there. Again, they do not appear to be earthly directed. I believe they're on the far side and on the west and east and north. And let's continue on to look at filaments. So here is the ground-based solar observatory at El Teide, Spain. And check out all the filaments. All those dark regions are absorption features. Those are filaments, and there are a lot of them in the earthly portion of the solar disk at the moment. Likelihood of additional coronal mass ejections remains at nearly 100%. We got into forecasting coronal mass ejections for a while, and since it didn't make dollars, it didn't make sense, so we just simply stopped doing it. You think people would be interested in when CMEs would be about to happen, but apparently not. So, yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's the current state of affairs. Let's bring up the latest image here. There is the latest image from El Teide, Spain's ground-based solar observatory. And look at all of the filaments. A crazy number of filaments there. No less than a dozen or so. Large filaments on the earthly portion of the solar disk. You'll see some of these showing up as prominences here on the GOES 16 SUVI. Huge crown prominences happening up here, prominences up here in the northwest, prominences down here around the south polar region. So lots of filamentary activity going on. That's about the last 2.5 hours from the GOES 16 SUVI with its wide field of view. Let's view the last 24 hours from the SDO, higher detailed, narrow field of view. All right, and let's move on. We've got a lot more data to cover, including Earth weather. Today's featured product, which is discounted. It's your last day to get a discount from the merch shop. So let's continue on to our bonus features segment. Bonus features, we've got some internal charging hazards here, some significant ones over places like the Indian Ocean and Western Australia. It's caused by high energy electrons making it inside of satellites. So that could cause some communications breakdowns from satellites located in those areas. Internal charging hazards there. GOES electron flux still pretty high here. We are expecting this to drop within a day or two, as we've seen an ongoing electron storm there. Not super high levels of electron flux, but on the high side. There you can see NOAA expecting a dip in the electron flux as well. I would tend to agree. There's the one-year graph to put it in context from solon.info. And let's take a look at the F ionosphere layer, since that is where those electrons are measured by the GOES 16 and GOES 17. It's located right about here at about 300 kilometers of altitude. This is the vibrational frequency of the bridge between Earth and space. And there are lots of anomalies happening, once again, in the F ionosphere layer. And if you're not familiar with looking at this imagery, don't worry, we'll show you the anomalygram. So here's the anomalygram. That's anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. Low frequency shown in red, high frequency anomaly shown in blue. Some weird ones around the African Rift Zone, right around this area. The equatorial Indian Ocean region, seeing some odd anomalies there. Also some significant low frequency anomalies over the central Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean. If you want to view this imagery yourself, head to the Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. Their header looks like this. Anyway, that's your latest image. That's 10 o'clock Universal Time, ionogram, and anomalygram. We'll also look at the total electron content forecast. It'll show you the most likely places for GPS errors. This is the total electron content from about 12,500 miles. That's about 12,500 miles of altitude down to your handset. It's the outer Van Allen belt all the way down to ground level. And we are seeing quite significant anomalies here. A lot of electrons out of place at the moment. You can see some significant GPS errors are likely over most of the world, really. They are typically a little more concentrated around the equator at noontime, but at the moment, major anomalies there over most of North America, for example, large portions of Antarctica. Let's let that play through one more time, as these are the most anomalies we've seen in the total electron content for a while on the channel. Turn on your location accuracy service on your GPS device to use Wi-Fi to help navigate your location. Next, the intensitygram and colorized magnetogram. So once again, we've got some named sunspot groups down here. Those will get names today. Beta class, alpha class. And there's another alpha class sunspot group in the north. Once again, likelihood of major solar flares very high with those setting groups, sunspot 3112 and 3116. That area in the northwest, again, very likely to produce large flares, despite some minor degradation in the past couple of days. Before we move to Earth weather, we've got one more series of images here from SDO. That is yesterday plus today in 3 species of ionized iron, 335, 193, and 94 angstroms. And we'll be streaming the GO16 SUVI all day on the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/smashomash. Install the mobile app to get an actual notification when we go live, twitch.tv/smashomash. And let's pause for station identification before we move to the realm of meteorology. Once again, thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. And let's talk ultraviolet radiation. Yes. It's always noon somewhere. At the moment, that's about where noontime is. Hence the highest levels of ultraviolet radiation. Not surprisingly, you can tell that it is now spring in the southern hemisphere. However, the east side is pretty dark. Anyway, here are the surface winds. In the heck? Let me press refresh. There are the surface winds the eastern side of the planet. Some pretty odd wind patterns there over central Australia, and a powerful low-pressure system rotating clockwise to its south. Also a powerful low there centered over the Kamchatka Peninsula. See that counterclockwise rotation? Here are the jet streams of the eastern world. Here are the jet streams of the central world. I mean the western world, that is. That's the Americas, yes. Strong jet stream over the southern U.S. and some cold air being injected into places like Minnesota, the Dakotas. Surface winds of this side of the planet looking like that. Heavy winds there on the Great Lakes at the moment. See those strong south to north winds happening there. Expect some whitecaps on the world's largest bodies of fresh water. Last but not least, here's the central world's surface winds. And here are the jet streams. And if you had to look at global weather patterns, the best single piece of data that you could possibly use for global weather pattern prediction would be the jet streams. It's the 250 hectopascal winds at nullschool.net. And before we continue on, make sure you take a moment to press like and subscribe. Help us out by visiting our links. Visit the homepage at smashamash.com to find us on all kinds of different social media. We are still on Patreon, by the way. So welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. Help us out with clicks. Let's just say Google has been less than helpful. Thanks to our YouTube viewers. And from the homepage, one of the links you can find is to the Smash Team page. smashomash.com/SmashTeam. It's our own subscription services site. We replaced Patreon with a superior site. smashomash.com/SmashTeam. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find the content, maybe you can hire the Smash Team. Join at the gold or silver level for additional content and become an executive producer of the content, making it more likely for it to continue to exist, remain publicly visible, and free for all to view. There's also a bronze level there, which costs you nothing. You will get email alerts if you sign up for them. Another link you can find on the homepage and on the Smash Team page is to SureMed. Membership in SureMed is an association membership in the nonprofit organization known as the American Better Health Organization, which is not insurance, although it does allow you to purchase group insurance that you can only get through the SureMed membership. So check that out. If you're a cyclist like me, it might be beneficial for you to get the Plus plan, as it includes accident insurance. You can find all kinds of information about that at the link below the video, as well as on our homepage to SureMed. Some of the membership perks include doctors by phone, counselors by phone, virtual veterinarians, discounts on dental, vision, pharmacy, vitamins, labs, and lots more. Today's the last day to save 20% on the Redbubble shop. So check that out. If you visit the link on the homepage or below this video to the Redbubble shop, you'll find our items in order of best selling. And while today I'm wearing the Google Bias product, since the term Google, when used as a verb, means to obtain biased information about someone or something on the World Wide Web. Of course, I stopped using it in 2012. It didn't become really popular to boycott Google as a search engine until 2016, around the 2016 elections. Today's featured product is Smasher Price My First Pandemic. So again, I'm wearing the Google Bias. If you're still using Google as a verb or as a search engine, it's making my ears bleed. We re-released one of our first merch items depicting a toddler placing a mask on the entire planet. It's Smasher Price My First Pandemic. So mask up, bro. If you'd like to wear a mask in this form, I can assure you that it is completely safe and effective. It's got a link to smashomash.org, which will just redirect you to smashomash.com. And once again, welcome to the Neo Renaissance. It's your last day to save 20%. Get yourself a souvenir to congratulate yourself for surviving a global pandemic so far. And once again, thanks to our YouTube viewers for putting up with the pathetic censorship on the platform. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to press like and subscribe. Press the share button if you're an influencer. Drop us a line. Leave us a comment, etc. Join us on the interwebs. And let's get back to the weather information. So here's what's going on in terms of clouds and fog over the Americas. That's the 3.9 nanometer infrared radiation satellite. It's too dark to use the visible, so we use the 3.9 nanometers. Clouds and fog, they emit radiation. You know, water vapor? Yeah, water vapor. It has a heat signature. It's a greenhouse gas, folks. Oh my God. Water vapor. Water vapor heating the planet up, which is why cloudy nights are warmer than clear ones. Abolish water vapor, folks. Abolish water vapor. Next, your weather.gov map. If your county's lit, click your county. Looks like Mexico's got some tropical storm warnings there on the east coast. Portions of Texas can expect to see some high waters there from the Gulf. Again, if your county's lit, head to weather.gov and click your county. Some gale warnings there on Lake Michigan and Lake Huron. Continuing on to our GFS weather forecast here. This is pressure and precipitation based on the GFS model for the next 72 hours. And as you can see, there's some snow making its way into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and a bit of Michigan, I believe. And we're also going to show the jet stream forecast based on that same model. So this is the 250 millibar winds. It is based on the same model we just showed, the GFS model for the next 72 hours. So that's your jet stream forecast. We don't always show that one, but I figured today would be a good day to show it. Next, windy.com. One of the great features of windy.com is you can look at ozone holes. So if you're interested in what's going on in the ozone layer, for example, over Alaska, it's at 381 DU, whatever that is. Down here, it's only 236 DU. And if you want to find the real hole in the ozone layer, you got to go to Antarctica. So if you head down there, it's all the way to 169 DU. Some kind of units, I would suspect. But that's what's going on with respect to ozone at the moment. Other great features available there on windy.com's mobile app. Here's the current pressure environment. See some low pressure there centered on the north central portion of Canada, reaching all the way down to Oklahoma. Next, we've got some significant lightning here, going all the way from Kansas up to the Great Lakes. Let's see if we've got any active cells at the moment. And indeed, we do have quite a few active cells in the U.S. Let's go from south to north. Hey, Kansas City. There's some lightning to your south. There's where the most recent strikes are there. We've also got some lightning here near Peoria. And some lightning over Lake Superior. Some lightning there as well to the northeast of Chippewa Falls. That's thunder rolling in. Next time you hear thunder, check out lightningmaps.org. It's fun to forecast thunder. A little bit of lightning activity happening there over the U.S. Next, your U.S. Doppler radar map showing vertical motion of water droplets from ground-based radar systems. There's a full 50 state view. We're going to focus on the lower 48 view. There's where rain cells are currently. Here's a 3.9 nanometer radiation for the lower 48. And the water vapor should clear things up. There is some dry air here pushing through as the jet stream makes its way down across the Dakotas and moves that weather. Also some compression causing there because we've got some dry mass of air down here and over here, and you're getting a huge pressure gradient there from that moisture. Remember, folks, dry air is more massive than moist air at a given temperature and pressure. Here's your recap. U.S. Doppler radar. Strongest portion of those storms there moving into central Missouri as we speak. Here is your clouds and fog. Some rapid cloud nucleation happening there over eastern Kansas. And there is water vapor. Once again, thanks for tuning in to the Smash News Network, Least Busted Name and News. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back.